Well, ladies and gentlemen, as our new government is settling in, I want to take a trip back to the campaign trail and have a look at what influenced voter decisions. Conservative Canadians viewed this election as a way to reverse the outcomes of a 9-year Trudeau administration, and Liberal Canadians, well...
They're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats.
Obviously, the ever-conveniently timed Trump ramblings about Canada did not work in favor of our Conservatives. Those 51st state comments and tariff threats and whatnot gave birth to a big wave of Canadian liberalism, as new political issues were born. Number one, who's going to stand up to Donald Trump? And number two, are Canadian Conservatives just American Republicans in red flannel? Well, judging by the recent dropping of the counter tariffs and this nonsense, I think it's safe to say that Carney's standing up to Donald Trump rhetoric was more a political game to acquire votes than a genuine policy platform. But the question of whether or not Canadian Conservatives truly resemble their so-called American counterparts baffles me in every way possible. Along the campaign trail, liberal discourse has labeled our Conservatives Maple MAGA, and Pierre Poilievre has been labeled Trump 2.0. Mark Carney himself even claimed that Mr. Poilievre worships Donald Trump.
Who's the worst person to stand up to Donald Trump? It's Pierre Poilievre. He worships the man. He worships the man. He worships the man.
Thank you for your hospitality and above all for your leadership. You're a transformational president, focus on the economy with a relentless focus on the American worker, securing your borders, ending the scourge of fentanyl, and other opioids, and securing the world.
I have a lot of trouble accepting these narratives. Not only do they seem like contrived smearing attempts at our politicians, but they're also blatantly untrue. This brings me to my central point. Canadian Conservatives are not American Republicans.
Canadian Conservatives
are not
American Republicans.
Told you.
What?
Told you, bro.
Are you serious?
Told you. Can I really rock?
There are a myriad of reasons as to why the two are not the same, so we're going to start with... Corporate welfare is classified as government subsidies for businesses, sometimes referred to as government bailouts. These bailouts act as welfare for the corporate realm of a capitalist society. It's widely criticized because it doesn't help spur the economy for the working class. In America's case, a study by the Mackinac Center found that in over a 17-year period, the average Republican legislator greenlit about $1.47 billion in business subsidies during their tenure. Only 17% of Republican policymakers opposed more than half of the business subsidy bills they voted on, suggesting that around 83% supported the majority of these measures. And checking in on our Canadian Conservatives here.
And so my question to him, yes or no, if he were in government, would he end this $18.5 billion in corporate handouts to an industry that's already making record-breaking profits?
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
I'll end corporate handouts to all industries. I don't believe in corporate handouts. We're the only party that stands against corporate welfare. We believe businesses should make money, not take money.
I will also be slashing corporate welfare. That's the subsidies and the handouts we give to big businesses.
Even the last Conservative leader suggested that we cut corporate welfare. Enough said. Now, before people show up at my house with torches and pitchforks or everyone goes to the comment section and calls me a raging sexist, I am pro-choice. I lost count of how many times I heard that Conservatives are against women's rights during the election cycle, which is weird considering the furthest right-wing politician in Canada is a woman and the Conservative deputy leader is a Jewish lesbian. But sure, tell me more about how they're all anti-woman. There seems to be this huge drive by left-minded folk to paint Canadian Conservatives as evil, sexist, scary bigots, especially when they're not. There was a harmless video of Pierre expressing an innocent concern that some women feel forced to give up having kids due to financial hardship, and people digged this video up just to brand him a misogynist. It just seems so contrived, like what's sexist about suggesting that women who want to have kids ought to be able to afford it? And tensions around abortion have been high for the past few years because of the overturning of Roe v. Wade in America, but let's be honest, this is not a Canadian issue. Sure, a great many American conservatives are pro-life, and it's probably the dominant opinion in Republican discourse, but abortion is way more of a status quo in Canada. And time again, I heard too many people say that a vote for conservatives is a vote against reproductive rights. rights. However, back when conservative Canadians were judging their leadership options in 2022, a Leger poll found that 67% of Canadian voters would prefer that the leader of the Conservative Party support abortion rights, against only 12% who would like them to oppose those rights. Another 21% did not know or said it did not matter. And if you don't believe me, ask our party leader.
I can guarantee you there will be no laws restricting abortion passed when I'm Prime Minister.
According to the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, the Trump budget would cut non-defense discretionary spending by $1.8 trillion over the decade. These programs cover a wide range of government functions, including scientific research, aid for local schools, job training, housing assistance, food safety, infectious disease control, environmental protection, and international assistance. $400 billion of these cuts will end programs for low and moderate income people. Put simply, Trump is attempting to balance his budget by cutting domestic programs. Part of these cuts will include cuts for government programs aimed at providing assistance to low and middle income families. During our campaign trail, Mark Carney made some interesting decisions with his spending plan. His idea was to run a budget deficit, and Pierre's Conservatives continued with their plan to balance the budget with a reduction in government spending. Now, at first glance, this looks like a parallel between Republicans and Conservatives, but the methods used to balance the budget by Conservatives and Republicans are radically different. Canadian Conservatives are not always in favor of cutting social programs. A large misconception in the election cycle was the idea that Pierre's Conservatives were aiming to cut childcare, dental care, and other social programs, but this is very obviously not true.
We will protect these programs, and no one who has them will lose them. And I would note, let's go through them one at a time. We will make sure that nobody loses their dental care. We will also, on child care, we all believe that there should be more affordable child care in this country. So while honoring the agreements on child care with the provinces, we're going to give more freedom and flexibility to parents, providers, and provinces to support the child care of all the kids. Why do the Liberals want to leave kids out in the cold if their parents are night shift workers or work on weekends? Why do they want to leave kids out in the cold if their parents have opted for private child care or home-based child care? We should support all child care options by having more flexibility. Then parents can decide which child care options they favor. Provinces can decide how to deliver those services on the front line.
If elected, Canadian Conservative budget cuts would have been more focused on cutting consultant funds, foreign aid, corporate welfare, and needless bureaucracy. This way, Canada would be closer to a balanced budget while also maintaining support programs. This would also allow for general tax cuts, as the government no longer needs to pull in as much revenue to sustain its efforts. In summary, to balance a budget, Republicans cut social programs and Canadian Conservatives cut wasteful spending. It's pretty universally accepted in economics that free trade is good as it obeys the law of comparative advantage. This concept states that if two nations specialize in their strengths and then trade them, everybody wins, and more importantly, no one loses. The Republican Party has been making some assertions that they're being ripped off by other nations within the free trade system. They justify this position by saying that America has trade deficits with nations that they conduct free trade with. And for those who don't know, a trade deficit means your country is buying more goods and services from other countries than they're buying from you. Now, I understand that the term deficit may make it seem like a problem, but trade deficits really aren't that bad. All it means is that you're importing more than exporting. You have more net inflow than net outflow. In fact, sometimes trade deficits just reflect strong consumer demand for goods and services. Think of it like this. You're buying more stuff from your neighbor than they're buying from you. That's not necessarily bad. It might just mean you've got more money to spend, or that their stuff is simply better or cheaper. And thank God it's available to you if it's really better and cheaper. It's not a crisis. It's just trade. But the thing is, the trade relationship between Canada and America is pretty balanced. It's not like there's some huge trade disparity between the two nations. In fact, according to TD Economics, the U.S. trade deficit with Canada is the second lowest among trading partners. So the tariffs that are being used by Trump to fix the deficits are really not smart economic policy, as they violate the law of comparative advantage and make goods more expensive for both nations. But nonetheless, Donald Trump remains in favor of this tariff approach, while the Canadian Conservatives say otherwise. Conservatives accept the idea that free trade works and promoted it hard during the campaign trail.
So let me spell out the possibilities for our American friends and speak directly to them. Option 1, you can carry out an unprovoked attack on our economy. Your consumers will pay more and your workers will make less. Gas prices will skyrocket. You will turn a loyal friend into a resentful neighbor, forced to match tariff with tariff.
and to seek friends everywhere else. Both our economies will weaken, leaving less money for defense and security, and our enemies will grow stronger. Option 1. Option 2. We trade even more, and both our workers make more. Our consumers pay less. The resulting GDP boost allows Canada to further strengthen its border and up our military spending to 2% of GDP faster.
Now, there is obviously going to be some overlap between American conservatives and Canadian conservatives, as they're both the right-wing party of their respective areas. They both want less taxes, more individual freedoms, less bureaucracy, stronger borders, prosperous free market systems, family structures, traditional values, and fighting left-wing extremism. But the two parties exist in totally different political worlds in some cases. For example, Republicans are staunch supporters of the privatized healthcare system and split from the Democratic Party, as some Democrats either support a stronger government hand in the private system or a universal system. But Canadian conservatives support the universal healthcare system. They just suggest that they can do a better job in managing it than Liberals and other parties. In fact, just take a look at some of the ideological implications of the policies that the parties support. In what world does the right-wing party take an anti-corporate welfare, anti-elitist stance?
I do believe that you can provide a solid social safety net at the same time as having a powerful free market economy that generates the wealth to fund that safety net.
If I had no idea who this person was and what party he was with, and you showed me this clip, I'd say he's a centrist or a liberal. We can talk about policy differences all day long here, but for some people it really doesn't matter how different the policies are. Some folks believe that Republicans and conservatives are the same in ideology, but just executed differently. And I don't even think that's the case. These are very obviously two different political movements altogether. Our right-wingers like universal healthcare, are pro-choice, take an anti-corporate welfare stance, support progressive taxes, support a safety net, and are pro-free trade. If you really think about it, this movement sounds even closer to the Democratic Party than the Republican Party. So in conclusion, any attempt to suggest that the Tories and the Republicans really are the same seems like a stunt to make conservatives look bad. And all of these attempts to suggest that Pierre Poilievre and Donald Trump are the same are the exact same way. Anyone can play this guilty by association political game to compare one politician to another. I want all of you out there to guess which politician I'm talking about. An old former real estate businessman with an economics degree who came into politics as an outsider and then surprisingly won the election. Guess what? That is the story of both Mark Carney and Donald Trump. I could go out there and suggest that the two are the same because they have the same upbringing, but I won't do that because I'm not a moron. So ladies and gentlemen, if you have your critiques of our conservative party, by all means, you can criticize their policy ideas, their rhetoric, and their politicians. But just blindly associating us with politicians you don't like is not only a shallow political thought, it's also inaccurate.